And welcome to another episode of In the Studio. I'm Lynn Weaver. The program is brought to you by Davis Media Access and is broadcast on Davis Community Television. That's Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T UVerse Venue 99. And of course, we're also online at dctv.davismedia.org. Welcome, everybody. Tonight we're going to talk about the Disney classic, The Little Mermaid, because it made its debut in Davis at the Davis Musical Theatre Company. The Davis Musical Theatre Company is an amateur musical theatre and a wonderful venue for children and young adults who are interested in performing. The company produces several shows a year, and this time they decided to have the classic Disney Little Mermaid. The musical fantasy was reimagined and in a beautiful way by Jan Isaacson, with the musical director David Chan, and of course based on the lyrics by Howard Ashman and Glenn Slater, and of course the music of Alan Menken. Well, the story is well known. Disappointed and disillusioned with her life under the sea, young, beautiful mermaid Ariel longs to experience the world of above, of the human world, and embarks in a journey to find her true self. The story, of course, is based on Hans Christian Andersen's original fairy tale. The musical production features many beautiful songs, and among them, of course, the well-known Kiss the Girl, Under the Sea, the Poor and Unfortunate Souls, as well as, of course, Part of Your World. And we're going to watch Part of Your World sung here. So it is my pleasure tonight to have here with me in the studio Cooper Johnson, the young, beautiful mermaid Ariel, and Heidi Johnson, the costume designer and coordinator or organizer, and of course Marti Schoen, who is the set designer and scenic artist. Welcome, everybody. I'm very happy to have you here. I have seen the production and I was very impressed with it. Now, what I'd like to do first of all is to ask you, all of you, and I'll start with Marti, how did you get involved in the musical theatre, the Davis Musical Theatre, and how can you tell us a little more about you as a person?
Well, sure. We moved to Davis in 1995 when my older daughter was 3, and not long afterwards, maybe a year, within the year, we had seen an ad for the Velveteen Rabbit live performance. And my daughter and I were both so impressed that after this wonderful performance, all by kids, the actor sat on stage, and it was so magical for my little 4-year-old to meet the velvet, the horse, the rabbit, all this. And then we found out that when she was 7, she could try out. So we lived and breathed till she was 7. All the shows, we'd go see everything, and then sure enough, she started to be in them. And the parents become very involved because it's all volunteer. And whatever skills you happen to have, you get asked to, do whatever you're comfortable doing. And I was always a commercial artist, so it got real natural for me to start doing painting. And then eventually, when my second daughter, who's 7 years younger, got involved, I started doing set design.
Well, we'll talk more about your skills and the set designs and this particular production a bit later in the interview. But Heidi, tell me a little bit about how you got involved too, and your story. I want to hear your story.
Well, I'm trying to remember. It's been several years ago now, maybe 6 or 7 years ago. I accidentally heard Cooper singing in her bedroom, and I walked by, and no one in our family can sing, and I stopped and started listening, and I thought, that actually sounds like she can carry a tune. And I thought maybe I should look into musical theater. I myself had always done theater before, but I don't sing. And we found some productions, smaller productions that are done at the Davis Arts Center, and then we actually found DMTC. And she first auditioned for one of their main stage shows they were doing, which was The Sound of Music, which has a children's cast. She was not exactly quite the right age. And it wasn't until a couple of years later that she went and auditioned again for a young performers theater performance, and that's when it started. And we were actually just counting on the way over. How many shows have you done?
I think 10. 10 in all, I'm pretty sure.
And quite a wide range repertoire,
Yes.
I'm sure. We could, for example, give me some examples of what you've performed in which shows.
I was recently seen in Charlotte's Web, where I was Charlotte, and I was also the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz.
Quite a range. Can you tell me, Cooper, how, well, your mom mentioned how you came about, but so can you tell me why you do this? Why you're involved in theater and singing?
Well, like my mom said, ever since I was young, I like to sing and I like to act and I like to dance. So when I grew up, I just thought that it would be fun. She sort of stole my story and told all about how...
It's okay. It's okay. You'll have plenty of opportunity to talk about yourself, especially in your interpretation of Ariel,
Yes.
which is a very complex character. And we're going to talk a little more about that. But Heidi, before we get into this, the Little Mermaid, which is a wonderful example of what the theater, the musical theater, can do, can you give us perhaps, can you say a couple of things about the history of this theater? I
Sure.
mentioned that it's an amateur musical theater and it's mostly volunteer.
It is all volunteer. Yes, it is.
Yes.
It is all volunteer. And I did take a moment to actually interview Jan Isaacson, who is one of the founders and co-producers of the theater. It's Jan and Steve Isaacson. And she told me the story that she was basically graduating from college. It was 1984. And she had always wanted to have her own theater company. And somehow at that time, finishing up that stage of her life, she was inspired. And Davis Musical Theater Company was founded, and in June of 1984 they opened at the local Veterans Memorial Theater with Peter Pan. And at the time, it was really the only theater in Davis, and everyone shared it. All of the theater groups shared it, including the high school, because the high school didn't have a facility. And one of their missions and one of their goals has always been to preserve musical theater. It's a unique art form. And it's a unique aspect to try to do musical theater because it's a little bit more expensive when you're talking about the musical side of the production, as well as very high-end sets and props and costumes, because musicals are pretty flashy compared to many stage plays.
And they're big productions.
And they are very big productions with lots of people. With lots of people.
Yes.
But it was their specific goal to preserve musical theater, and there is still a focus today on many very traditional shows that are very family-oriented. And then there are some more newer and modern things thrown in as well. But again, preserving it is really a main goal. So they really didn't have, they were at the Veterans Memorial Theater for quite a while, and then they found their own space over on 2nd Street here. I wasn't quite sure where. And they were there.
Avenue, I believe.
Was that, okay.
Pena Avenue, yes.
Well, that's where they are now.
Yes.
They've only been there since 2003, and before that they had been at the Veterans, and then they were at the Varsity for a while.
Oh,
and the interesting thing about that is when they didn't really have their own home, as you might imagine, they would only be able to be in the theater for about 2 weeks. So the rehearsals took place in people's homes, in churches, in garages. They were building the sets in the backyard. They were storing the costumes in people's houses. And at one point they had 8 storage units, she said, where they moved around their stuff and the props from here to there. And it wasn't until they ended up on Pena Drive that they really had everything all in one space, and it didn't look like it does now, she said. They've done a lot of work there. And there is a big costume house, a big prop house, a big orchestra pit.
Not big enough.
Not big enough. I guess it would never be big enough.
By comparison to nothing. We had nothing before,
It's a very good beginning. It's a wonderful story too, and of course, it's as I mentioned before, it's a wonderful venue for children and young adults, which is independent from their school work or the high school or whatever, the middle school. So I'm so glad that you are able to be here and talk about it. But let's go back to the actual Little Mermaid production, and I'm going to ask Cooper, but jump in, everyone, if you'd like. What strikes me is how unique the story of the Little Mermaid is, and how do you think it sets it apart from other fairy tales in a way? And again, Cooper, you are the key character. So what do you think is particularly unique to Ariel?
Well, like you said, it's based off of the original fairy tale, and the Disney version is actually a lot different from the original fairy tale, but it's perhaps one of the most relatable fairy tales that we as people can relate to, because it's mostly about the things that we don't appreciate and that we do later. Like the whole story, she lives under the sea and she doesn't really appreciate her home and her voice, and she gives it up for something else, and she finds something better than she could ever know under the sea.
And of course, you mentioned that the Disney production is very different from Hans Andersen, Christian Andersen's fairy tale. And in fact, were you aware that there are 2 endings to that?
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the Disney ending and the other 2 endings from the fairy tale?
Well, the Disney ending has the classic Disney ending where she lives happily ever after with her prince that she's been searching for the entire story.
In the wedding dress.
And in the wedding dress, of course.
And the wedding dress,
Sparkling in the sunset.
And the wedding dance with the prince.
Of course.
Yes.
And the original fairy tale version is actually pretty morbid. She doesn't end up with the prince at all, and she becomes an angel in the end to look after children. And it's almost like she's in some sort of purgatory where every day she's put on with more tasks to look for more happy children, and it's pretty sad how it ends.
Yes, it is sad but of course it has perhaps a Christian meaning, but it lends itself to so many interpretations,
yes,
and I think that is why perhaps it's so fascinating and it's relatable, as you said.
Yeah, there's so many interpretable themes of that.
It's wonderful. So what does Ariel represent to you? I mean, you must be very close to her.
I think Ariel just represents like a person, someone like you or someone like me that's looking for something or looking for happiness in their life and is willing to do anything to get it.
Yes. What about the tail? I mean, she's not human after all. What does that represent in a way?
I'm not really sure. I think it might just be something different about her that separates her from something that she wants, and it's the thing that she's willing to give up, also her voice, to become a human.
Yes, yes, and she's willing to explore other worlds
Yes.
and other selves, perhaps. Yes, well, that's interesting. Marti, you are, I mean, it's a very, very difficult production to put together. Can you tell us about some of the challenges that you've had in terms of scenes and settings and sets and all that?
Well, the main challenge we decided not to take on, which was to try to make people look like they're swimming. Well, we look at Broadway. What did these people with millions of dollars do? And they had them on skates, gliding along, all of these sort of plastic sets, which I'm sure must have looked better in person, but they don't look great on YouTube. So actually Jan entertained the idea of the kids being on those little skater shoes for a while, which, really wasn't practical or safe. So we just, went with people walking around, and what we decided to do was make Under the Sea visually beautiful and colorful.
Yeah.
And then the above sea stuff was a little, very minimalist. So that when it was interesting, it was under the water.
Yes. And of course the costumes, Ariel's costumes, that must have been very difficult to create.
Right, all the...
Yes. Yes.
Just ask my mother.
Yeah, Heidi worked on
Nights and nights at the kitchen
Heidi,
table.
yes.
Well, yes, it is Under the Sea, and anything underneath was meant to be very colorful. And from another production, it's actually pretty common within the theater that we try to make costumes that are very nice and that are durable so they can be used in other productions, and we house them. We did have a number of sea creatures from another production, which turned out to be very lucky, and there was a lot of color. We had some jellyfish and some other fish and a turtle and a porpoise, items like that. But trying to costume a mermaid was a challenge, and I remember I had a discussion with Jan where I said, but she's a mermaid, and they said, but this is musical theater, you need to dance. And I said, but it's a mermaid, and she said, but it's musical theater, they need to dance. So we had to find so because a constricted mermaid was going to be doing a limited amount of dancing. So we did have to construct something that allowed for musical theater where we dance, but still look like a mermaid. And I think that has been kind of fun. It definitely was a challenge.
It was
but it's
very
been fun.
beautiful to watch.
Yes.
And I've noticed you brought some props, and you mentioned the turtles. So can you hold them up and talk a little bit about it, Marti, or yes?
Well, the turtle was done by Jennifer Nachmanoff, and she's a wonderful ceramic artist, sculptor, potter, and she's just really awesome at doing.
Is it papier-mâché?
Yes, and she's awesome at dimensional objects, and she happens to love to do papier-mâché, so we're very lucky that this is just one of her pieces. And so this is part of the Under the Sea, and this comes down and hangs over, and so they're in the air as if they're swimming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then the prop, this is up above in the human world, where at one point Ariel's in a palace, and there's a really entertaining number with chefs, and I remember exactly where this was used. Was that at the top of Act 2?
It's the top
yeah, it's the top of Act 2.
Yeah, and so, it's fabulous what the,
Well, it looks
props
almost
department
real.
can do. Yeah,
When
so
you
it looks
came
very real.
in, I thought you were going to
But it's
treat
foam.
us to some cake.
I'm always so entertained by just what this is basically foam that's been cut and painted very creatively.
Yeah.
And lots of hot glue.
Yes.
Lots of hot glue.
Well, we were very fortunate and grateful to you because we were able to download the part of your world, the song that you sing, Cooper, and we're going to have it here so that our viewers can listen to you and see you. And again, thank you for allowing us to have it here. And feel free if you like to.
If only I could make my father understand. I just don't see how a world that makes such beautiful things could be bad. deal. I want more. I want to be where the people are. I want to see them dancing, walking around on those, what's that word? Oh, feet. Flipping your fins, you don't get too far. Legs are required for jumping, dancing, walking along down the, what's that word again? Street. Up where they walk, up where they run, up where they stay all day in the sun, wandering free. Wish I could be part of that world. What would I give if I could live out of these waters? What would I pay to spend a day warm on this sand? Betcha on land, they understand that they don't reprimand their daughters. Bright young women, sick of swimming, ready to stand, and ready to know what the people know. Ask them my questions and get some answers. What's fire and why is it, what's the word? Burn. When's it my turn? When's I love to explore that shore up above? Out of the sea. Wish I could be part of that world.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. What did you feel when you hear yourself sing like that?
I guess pretty good. I've been training for a long time, and it's nice to see all of my hard work pay off in my first big lead role, and it's really exciting that I finally get to be a Disney princess.
With a happy ending.
Exactly. I do get the prince.
Marti, what was the reaction of the public for this
For Little
production?
Mermaid?
Yes.
Well, it's a highly popular show,
Yes.
and I mean, practically a sellout, right? So,
Yes.
and it's so special for the kids afterwards to go up and meet their favorite characters, and even the evil witch. You know, I've seen the kids go right up to her and they want their picture taken with her. It's a wonderful thing that the theater does to have the cast out afterwards.
A great success. It's wonderful. Well, we don't have too much time left, unfortunately. So let's talk a little bit about the future, in terms of the future of the upcoming shows, perhaps, and your involvement. And we'll start with Marti.
If my daughter tries out, I'm involved.
Yes.
And the next show is already the auditions have already taken place. So then after that, I think it's Tom Sawyer.
It is.
There are 4 shows for the Young Performers Theater, I think a year, plus the summer workshop. The same theater, Davis Musical Theater, also has main stage shows running, which are mostly adult performers, and some kids are always in those too. So if my daughter tries out, then I sign up again, and we all have to put in our hours, and we all work pretty much shoulder to shoulder.
Well, that's one of the nice things that the theater is actually offering. It's a very, the whole family is involved, and it is very community oriented. A lot of production companies don't work that way.
So the rehearsals, how many months do they last?
It's usually about 6 weeks.
6 weeks only. And so the frequency is every day?
Well, we rehearse every day, but not every performer is called every day.
Yeah.
But it's a really big commitment, and the parents begin working as soon as the kids begin working, and it just depends on what the director decides every day, and she coordinates there are performances and rehearsals, but it's pretty much every day after school for 2 hours.
Mm-hmm. And who are the people doing the auditions? Are they parents as well as, or is it mostly Jan?
For you, whoever the director is.
I see.
And Jan is often the director, but not always. There's
Not always.
always somebody else every year that also directs.
And then she will,
Yeah.
or the director will perform the auditions.
Yeah, and I think the musical director takes part
the
in those
musical
auditions.
director
That
plays the
varies.
pieces.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting. So do you have another role coming up?
Not right now. I think though in the summer I'm going to help out behind the scenes with Tarzan just to learn another aspect of theater.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, since I've
Yes.
usually been on the stage, I think I want to work with either costumes or set design.
Yeah. Is there an understudy for some of these main roles?
I've never been in a show where we've had understudies for any of the parts at all, but that would be interesting to see.
Some theaters do a double
casting,
to
yeah.
give more opportunities to people to perform.
That's right.
So you might do it with a limited number of roles, or you might do it with every role. We haven't seen that since we've been at Davis Musical Theater.
There are some. I haven't seen them either, but Madeline was double cast a year or so ago, and I have heard there were some others. And but in general, they don't.
It depends on the availability. And,
I'm not really sure what
yes.
what is
Yes.
determining it. Yeah.
Well, I have learned so much, and I've been so delighted to have you on our show. I'm afraid we need to wrap it up because we are out of time. But keep up the good work, and congratulations, Cooper.
Thank you.
I'm really impressed. You show a lot of talent and promise, so it is wonderful. And Heidi, you're a wonderful mom.
Oh, thank you.
Very dedicated. And
That's what it
Marti and
takes.
your daughter also. So again, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having us.
Marti Schoen, Heidi Johnson, and Cooper Johnson. And of course, thank you to all of you watching at home. I'm Lynn Weaver. You've been watching in the studio. You can stream this episode on our website at dctv.davismedia.org, and while you're there, you can check out some of our other very interesting programs. And of course, see you next time. Thank you.